Here's this funny thing. So what my fiance doesn't know is that I bought Lord of the Rings Journey to Middle-earth. It's in an Amazon box. She has no idea. After we do our wine tour, we're driving down to a Soyuz. And have you heard of there's a place down south called the Halfling Hideaway.
Cool. So that's where you're going to play it?
So we're going to actually unbox and play and learn and review Journeys in Middle-earth at Hobbiton.
Sweet.
Yeah.
You've got a thing for the dramatic when it comes to things like that.
There's not even 2 reviews. I mean, I have to be able to do things, you know, a bit special.
Yeah.
This would be cool. It's actually a good price. Yeah. She has no idea. Nice. She has no idea. So, mum's the word, but she does not know yet. So it's a great secret. Map sent us on a wild goose chase. This is not a wild goose chase. I've double checked it a couple times.
Just to make sure. And you knew we were going out this far?
We are, yes.
This better be one hell of a surprise.
At this point, I'm getting concerned.
So what, we're going to get there and it's going to be a ramble down an old shack?
Yeah, we
Try not to internally freak up right now.
We want to go in here. Yeah. In here.
What?
Yeah, I think it's here. Yeah. Yeah.
Why are we...
Yeah.
But there's a house there.
Yeah. I think we're here, yeah. Keep going.
You're confusing the crap out of me and I don't like it.
Yeah. You mentioned ribbons.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's here, right to our left, baby. And here it is.
What the f?
Yep. Here it is. We are staying, honey, in Hobbiton. Look what I found in this chest. It's too bad that's not what we're going to be playing. So we're actually in, we're not in New Zealand, we're not in Hobbiton. We're in a place called Bridesville, located east of Soyuz. And we're actually kind of in the middle of nowhere, actually. We're about 25 minutes from Soyuz, which itself is a pretty small town on its own.
And make sure you don't hit your head.
Yeah, unfortunately this is a U place because I am just slightly short. Look at that, eh?
There's a board game there. Was that the game you pointed out to me?
Yeah.
That was kind of dumb on your part.
And yet, you didn't know.
Yeah, but what if I really, really wanted to get it? Then you would be, well...
I would have said it's too expensive. The funny thing is that my series Amethyst is about people embracing moments of fantasy, but being completely aware that they can rejoin the modern world when they wish. And we are doing exactly that. Like we're in in a anachronistic image of fantasy, but we have a microwave, a toaster oven, a refrigerator, and regular heating. But we have the illusion of being in a fantasy world, and it's just that, an illusion, and I will embrace that illusion.
Journeys in Middle-earth.
It's water.
We're already there. Such an occasion.
Learn to play is nice. It's 13 pages. The rules reference is 32 pages. Why?
Just because you never know when they might come in handy. Or I might
If you haven't figured it out by now, this is a review for Lord of the Rings, Journeys in Middle-earth. We're going to be going through the gameplay, the rules, and give you an opinion on how the game plays and what our thoughts are on it. Let's start with the rules. And yeah, I just found this just on this table right here as part of the experience. I actually don't smoke, I'm allergic to tobacco, and I don't know how many lips have actually touched this, but you know, the effect. So here's the basic arrangement of Lord of the Rings, Journeys in Middle-earth. At the beginning, you don't actually see much. The app does everything, and the app is off-screen, which we'll show here. Now, you would initially choose a new game, you would choose a team name, you would choose your characters. Those characters will give you additional or starting equipment. Like in the case of Aragorn, he gets a sword, a banner, a travel guard. And in the case of Legolas, he will get his cloak and a great bow. You will also get a miniature based off of that. The app will then also tell you which roles to select. Now, the role select tells you which starting cards you gain. Now, your starting cards are broken up into 3 categories. Well, technically 4, but we'll get into that. The first one is going to be your character-specific one. You'll know that because it'll be indicated with the name, Aragorn. And then the next step are the ones based on your role. There's Captain, Hunter, Guardian, and so forth. And since Aragorn is being selected as the captain, he gets these 3 additional cards. Everyone also gets these 5 basic cards. And that's basically the setup. Now, the 4th option is you have to gain a weakness. Now, this deck does 2 different things. Not only does it give you potential skills that you can play in the game, but it also is the replacement for the dice. You might have read elsewhere in other videos, and it's absolutely confirmed here, that Journeys in Middle-earth is virtually a reskinning of Mansions of Madness 2nd edition. And there are some things that are very notable. The first is the inclusion of 2 different life pools, fear and damage. basically identical to Matches of Madness. You use the app in almost the exact same way. You lay out tiles in a very similar fashion, tiles that have exploration and encounters. So it's very, very similar. The big difference, however, is the replacement of dice with the deck. The deck becomes your random number generator. In the deck, there are hits, which are denoted by this symbol in the upper right-hand corner. Well, upper left-hand corner. And then you have these fates. Now, these fates can be turned into successes if you spend an inspiration token. Once again, an identical component to the clue tokens and clue die results in Matches of Madness. But of course, there's a lot of those, but a few misses. And as you might have figured out, this weakness counts as a miss. So when you're asked to draw cards, you will be asked to draw several cards, and if any of them contain a success, you gain a success, and of course you can turn the fates into successes by spending any available inspiration tokens you might have. This is the standard equipment of Aragon. You can see here he has his permanent ability. He has a bit of information on the back, as well as suggestions on his equipment and his suggested role, captain. We have his 3 equipment here, and we have his deck. We also see here we have his skills. Might 3, Wisdom 4, also denote the symbols, also listed there. This is important because you will be asked to do a check for agility, and it will just show you the symbol and not the name. When you do a skill check, you actually draw a number of cards equal to your number. So if you're doing a wisdom check, you would draw 4 cards, which is good. And if you gain successes on those, in this case, I drew 4 fates. If I had any inspiration tokens, I could turn those into successes, but since I don't, which are here, and I have a maximum of 4, I would fail that skill check. Combat works exactly the same way. You would use your skill. In this case, my sword uses might, indicated by that symbol there. I would draw a number of cards equal to my might skill, which here we see is 3, and you would draw 3 cards. Now in this case here, we'll draw 1, 2, 3. So that's 1 hit. Now, let's say I had a token. I can turn that into a hit. Now we see the weapon here. 1 success equals 2, and 2 successes equal 5 hits, inflicting 5 points of damage. Now, one thing I did not know on my first playthrough is that you can actually activate both of these in one turn. So let's say I drew that, ignoring this card. Well, I could still spend that token and get 3 successes, and that would actually turn this 5 into a 7. 5 plus 2 is 7, so you actually inflict way more damage on attack if you were to do so. And would you be surprised that's almost the entire game? I mean, quite literally. You get 2 actions on your turn. You only have a choice of 3. Attacking, interacting, or movement. Now, movement involves traversing across the tiles. Now, the app will tell you which tiles to lay down. On your turn, you can traverse 2 areas on your turn. So I can go here to here. When you enter a new area that has a token, you enter a whole tile that has a token, you would gain this token. It turns into an inspiration token, and you would activate the event that occurs. This can happen in the middle of your turn, and your turn is not over, nor is your movement over. Now, if I was here and went here, I could continue after the turn was over, after the encounter was over, in order to continue your movement. You can also break up your movement to use your other actions. So I can move here, search this icon, and then continue my movement afterward. Now there are 3 different icons. You have an interact icon, you have a person you can encounter, and a potential threat. And these get placed on the map according to what the app tells you. You may sometimes also find other additional items. Now, your limit is based on these icons here. You can have 2 hands worth of items. There are your 2 hands worth of items. And over here you have your armor, and this is a trinket. Now, this trinket has a limit of uses, and you gain a number of tokens equal to those uses. Once that gets used up, that's basically it for that item. There's also these numbers here, which allow you to spend lore, which are kind of like experience you gain, in order to upgrade these items to their next level. When the app tells you to place miniatures, you would place your enemy miniatures there. When involved in combat, you would refer to the app. Now, when you click on the icon, it gives you the option to inflict damage. Now, in this case, let's say we did 7 damage, you would do that here. Well, you would enter that here. And this here we see we killed one guy and injures another. Even though we removed one ruffian, the enemy can counterattack with the opportunity to evade these with a defense. And this defense, in this case, uses Spirit. And that would use the exact same rules as before. You would draw 2 cards, and for every success, you were able to mitigate either 1 fear or 1 damage, which is indicated by these 2 icons here. Now, what's interesting, though, of course, is that that becomes that enemy's activation. During the shadow phase, if this character is not activated, he actually will not act or pursue. So if you engage them and then, run away, they can't actually chase you. But here's where the rules get a little interesting. Because this icon here is grayed out, this enemy cannot act on the shadow phase. After all the characters have gone, you activate that phase, which means going over to this icon and clicking on that. It's during this phase that the threat increases. One of the most common things characters will be doing on their game is they'll be scouting. Now, scouting occurs usually at the end of a rally phase, where you'll draw 2 cards, and in the case of Aragon, he gets to draw 3. You can then place one of these, if you want, in your skill area, and place the other either at the top or the bottom of your deck. Pretty straightforward. The only downside, of course, is that if you pick one of these, which is usually a better card, it takes away one of your hits out of your deck. So it's a bit of a balance. Obviously, these ones here are pretty good. You can put those out, but you'll be... Okay. You'd be inclined to probably place this one, because it removes a miss from your deck. The only downside, of course, is that it's not as good as the hit cards. A hit card, of course, it counts as a hit, but in combat, you can strike to add 2 more hits. This is a big one, because this can actually increase damage. So the game, of course, is about mitigating this deck. Which cards do you want to place in your skill row, and which ones you wish to remain in your deck to give you success on various tasks. On this action, because this guy hasn't been activated on the previous turn, he gets to attack now. He can move 2 to a closest hero, and then he can attack. And that allows him to strike for some damage. And one thing I think is really cool is that each time you play the same mission, if you were to do so, the actual arrangement of tiles is randomized. So you actually get to play a different mission even though the actual objectives are the same. Once you pass the threshold, then something really bad happens. And more enemies generally will arrive. I feel like every mission gives you this option to test for spirit, and if you succeed, you gain 1 inspiration. Personally, I think you should just gain 1 inspiration for free at the beginning of the game. And why I interacted with them, they're now ready to attack, but I can't attack them on the same turn that I interact with them. That feels really weird. If you're approaching and stealthily approaching them, somebody else has to now approach and attack them, and I can't. So it's now Legolas. Now Legolas does not need to move, so you can actually attack. Oops. So, 1 hit will do 2 damage. Now, unfortunately, I won't be enough to kill him, but if I spend my token, I will. So that'll give me 2 hits.
Which is 5.
5, yeah. Well, 2 successes, which does 5 damage. We'll do 5. And apply. You or 1 nearby hero gains 1 inspiration. Since Aragorn still has his inspiration, Legolas will take it. So by the way, the game claims that the fog tells you where the map's going to expand. That is not true. So now we enter the rally phase. Each hero can reset their deck, and then they get to scout 2. But because of Aragorn's ability, these characters get to scout 3. Which means, drawing the cards from the top of your deck, you can place 1 in your skill pile, and put the rest on the top of the bottom of your deck. Now this is at 40. If this goes all the way to 40, I will eat my hat. Another thing is annoying that you only gain an inspiration token if you defeat an entire group. If you defeat 1 guy, you don't get inspiration. So 1 character can whittle down an entire unit, but if another guy makes a final blow, he gets the inspiration token. He can elect to give it to the other person, but there's only 1. You would think that both people would gain the inspiration token, but nope, only one guy gets it. Okay, so apparently skill checks work the same way as combat, which means there's a number of successes you have to complete at in order to succeed. Unlike monsters, which tell you how much health they have, the skill checks don't. So you just have to chip away at a skill check until you either succeed or it tells you the fail effects. That's a little frustrating, and the game doesn't tell you. So if you're playing the game for the first time, it can get very frustrating if you chip away at a skill check that you think is impossible, not realizing that you will succeed if you just chip away that skill check enough. So we've completed the mission, and we're going on to the second one. Experience points where you can buy skills. These expensive ones can give you additional hits. These ones don't. So they give you an extra card, but it counts as a miss in your deck if you draw that card. All right, this next one is a battle map, which completely changes the arrangement. Now we get these instead, as indicated by the app. So the combat-based missions are shocking. Well, this one at least was way easier than the first one. I thought it interesting that the enemies were very weak, so you could kill them relatively easily, and that's how we got a lot more tokens, because we got a lot of tokens, because I was worried that we wouldn't get a lot of these inspiration tokens because there was no exploration. But there's a lot of chum to go through, so as you defeat them, you'll gain a whole bunch more of these. So that was interesting. What'd you think?
It was interesting.
Yep. So here's an example of the problem I'm thinking we're having with this. We timed out for the second time. 2 characters were nearly dead, but nobody did their last stand. But we timed out. This area remained unexplored. This area remained unexplored. This area remained unexplored. And we had search icons here, 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 and here. There's just never enough time to do anything. You just have to race. So, what are my thoughts on the game? Well, I think it's really good. I think it's, I guess it depends on whether or not you like Mansions of Madness or Lord of the Rings. I have to admit I prefer Lord of the Rings, so I guess I would like this game better. I do like the way Mansions of Madness handles their storytelling. I think so far it's richer. So far in Lord of the Rings, it's just been running here and doing battles. I think the campaign mode is stronger, though. The fact that every mission is connected and there feels to be more continuity experience, using lore to boost yourself. So in that, I would place Lord of the Rings Journey to the Middle-earth better than Mansions of Madness. This game isn't perfect. For one, as I stated in the playthrough, it's frustrating that some skill challenges have a number of total successes required and doesn't tell you how many you require. That's fine, but in combat, you know exactly how many hit points a monster is required to be defeated. Now, I seem to remember in Mansions of Madness 2, you didn't know how many wounds a creature was required to take before it died. In this game, the monsters do have hit points you are aware of. But the skills challenges, you don't. And the game doesn't tell you that a certain number of skills challenges are required, and as a result of that, you may bang against a mission, skill challenge, and not realize that you just have to chisel away at it for 3 or 4 rounds. And you may think you may need one powerful character to pull off a really big, successful skill challenge where you could just have a couple of successive, smaller successes, and that would do it. Then there's this somewhat arbitrary timer mechanic where you have this threshold. There were times where the shadow loomed twice in one single shadow phase because this random generator jucked it up so much. I literally did it twice in one turn. Then, of course, next turn, it didn't happen at all. But it's kind of weird because in our second game, which was entirely a combat-based one, it only surged once. As a result, the second mission was a pushover. It was a cakewalk. We finished it in just under 45 minutes. That was very strange. I don't know how this thing works. And considering that if the timer runs out, you lose, it's a little frustrating. And not because I don't want a time mechanic. Obviously, this is something that's carried over from Mansions of Madness. And it feels to have more of a thematic reason. In here is just this darkness looms. And it doesn't really make a lot of thematic sense within the Lord of the Rings setting. Like, how does this shadow, just this darkness sets in? This kind of arbitrary darkness sets in to make everything gloomy, and then you just arbitrarily lose. They can try to justify it, but My problem with it is that it is a mechanic that's obviously carried over. It's like the fear mechanic, the fact that everyone has a fear value and a damage value, and that's carried over from Mansions of Madness as well. And I never got the indication that any character in Lord of the Rings, especially Gimli and Legolas and Aragorn, were ever actually afraid of anything. Not to the point of losing a fight because of fear. So I felt that didn't need to be there. It does prevent you from exploring. In our first mission, we succeeded, but we succeeded because we ignored almost every single arbitrary exploration. Just going home. It prevents you from doing exploration. So there were these 4 icons there, and we completed the mission with about 2 turns before the shadow basically ended the game for us, which meant it was really difficult, if not impossible, to uncover all these exploration tokens. So the game wants you to explore, but then doesn't give you enough time to explore. It feels really weird. And I almost think that it was based on their desire to make the game difficult. And this has been something I've rallied about a long time, that I find board games are made arbitrarily too difficult because they think they need to be difficult, where a video game is generally not difficult. Or they'll have 5 or 6 difficulties, so you can play it the way you want to play it. But board games don't want you to do that. They want to give you like 2 levels of difficulty, maybe, and then they'll make the base difficulty too difficult. And they won't give you suggestions to make the game easier, and it's very annoying. It's really annoying that board games haven't learned something that video games have figured out 20 years ago. And they are doggedly not learning from this. You should be able to play a game your way. And a game like this one, having a normal and a hard and not having an easy, now I'm not saying that we would play it on easy, but maybe somebody who's younger, or a group of people who just want to encounter the story, maybe they want to. Now, there are some people who get angry. Like, why did you lower the difficulty in Dark Souls? Why did you lower the difficulty of these other games? Because to make it accessible. We're not preventing you from playing the game in the harder difficulty. You still can. The fact that we just won at the skin of our teeth in that first mission. Actually, our first mission we failed at. We restarted because we missed out a rule about how combat works. So we wanted to start over, and we won. But once again, we won at the skin of our teeth. The first time we played, we actually lost. And that's frustrating sometimes when you play a game on the first mission of a campaign and you start with a loss. If this game had a lower difficulty for those people who want to play a more story-based game without having to be stressed by, the frustration of disappointment, I think this game would have gotten a 10. As it is, I think it gets pulled back down to probably a 9 to a 9.5. I'd settle down to a 9. I think that there is some randomness. But I know people think that I generally hinge on the complaints too much. I don't talk about what I love. What can I say? The game is really fun. I love the new random number generator with the cards. The fact that they've combined your skill deck with the random number generator that you use with the dice. That because you're using it with the cards, you get to mitigate that randomness. And I think it's really neat because you get to scout your deck at the beginning of each turn. So you can place successes at the top, or you can take that card and place it on your skill deck. And if it's a hit, you can kind of preload additional damage by taking that hit and placing it in your skill tree, in your skill area, and then using that to do incredible amounts of damage if you know you're going into a fight. And that's how we managed to beat the second mission in the campaign so easily. Because we were going into a fight, I made a point of preloading hit cards into my skill area, so that when I drew cards, if they were hits or they were fates, I could use inspiration tokens and then cook off these skill cards and then do an incredible amount of damage. And that's really neat. And the fact that you can buy additional cards with later missions, and you can spend to get more expensive cards, and those more expensive cards give you more hits. And if that sounds familiar, you're right. Because that is a rule or a mechanic that they took directly from Gloomhaven. And yes, I mean, if you don't know Gloomhaven, know how the card management system works. This is a simplified variation of the way Gloomhaven's combat mechanic works. And it's brilliant. I think it was the best part of Gloomhaven. I think I have some issues with the way Gloomhaven runs, but that's not one of the problems I have with Gloomhaven. And as a result, I think they took the best part of Gloomhaven and put it into this Mansions of Madness and turned it into Lord of the Rings. Oh yeah, take my money. I think it's a great addition. I think it's neat. I like the fact that you're more emboldened. In Mansions of Madness, you were a very weak person. When you fought creatures, you almost always died unless you had help. And this game, most of the things you fight, you can defeat. And I think that's cool. I think that's a really cool idea. I like the fact that the missions are connected. I like the fact that there's already a DLC, so you can download more missions as well, and then continue just like Mansions of Madness with downloadable content and additional expansions. I can't do this review without including the person who was the most surprised by our location.
Yeah. I was not expecting that at all.
No? I kept it hidden from you?
Yep.
You weren't suspecting anything?
No.
She really had no idea what we were saying. And you kind of didn't, you suspected, you knew it was a Lord of the Rings board game, but you didn't know which board game it was.
I thought it was cards.
So what did you think of Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth?
I really don't mind it. I think it's fun.
I really don't mind it.
Really
High praise for my fiance. Just put it on your quote. I really didn't mind it, Nicole.
I think it's entertaining. There's always a couple mechanics that you and I don't really like, but
if there's a mechanic you don't like, what is it? The randomness or the fact that
I never seem to have the cards that I need,
right?
And I never seem to be able to get enough cards or enough inspiration tokens, where it becomes like Gimli is becoming useless unless he happens to get what he needs,
right?
Which kind of sucks.
Yeah, a little bit of randomness does kind of affect that. Anything else? Because you've played Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition, which this game is very similar to. Would you say this is better?
Yes and no. I feel like Mansions of Madness had a bit more exploration allowed, whereas this one I feel like we're constantly brushing to meet our objective.
I mentioned that earlier, the fact that you feel like you don't have enough time to do all the exploration.
And you'd like to be able to and be like, ooh, what can I get out of this? Ooh, I can catch a pig. I like the artwork.
Obviously.
Yeah, and the layout. And I like being able to form the game board. Even though it's random, it's cool to find.
It's neat that every time, if you do the same mission over again, it actually randomizes. That's cool. So
that is cool.
If you do start the campaign over, you will see a different sequence of events. So you give the score, what would you give the score for this one?
What was it, 8.5, 9?
I gave it about 9.5.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
I think for me it's just based on the fact that I never seem to have what I need.
Yeah.
You seem to have like 4 cards all the time. Maybe I'm playing it wrong.
No. Legolas is a good archer, and he draws 4 cards every time he does a range attack, which means Legolas is just really good.
I mean for scouting. Because we only keep 1 card.
No. Well, remember, Aragorn always draws 1 extra when he scouts.
Yeah.
Right.
But you still only get to keep 1.
True,
card.
and Legolas does that as well.
Yeah, and me too. So I never seem to have enough cards.
Yeah. So yeah, so we both seem to give it pretty high praise. Definitely an excellent game.
Great for doing it out here.
Oh yeah, you like the scenery?
It's a great. It's a good match.
Yeah. Now, if you still find failing repeatedly to be frustrating, well, there's a couple of things you can go over. The first thing is that you can start each mission with 1 or 2 additional inspiration tokens to give you that little bit of an edge. Another thing you can do, which I actually think is probably not a bad idea, I think the characters move too slowly. A lot of cards in the game give you a sprint, but sometimes you have to travel from one side of the map to the other side of the map in a span of maybe 1 or 2 turns. The point I'm making with this game is that I really, really wish there was more exploration and more time. I would rather lose the game by characters dying rather than constantly timing out, because you are always in a rush, always in a race. I don't think we could have won the 4th mission that we just played. We had to go from one side of the map to the other and then all the way back. And there were so many monsters that were spawning. There was just no way for us to get it. But if you want an easier game, I can definitely say maybe make characters move 3 spaces instead of 2, or add inspiration tokens. So that's my review for Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth. And this is our last day here in the Halfling Hideaway in Bridesville, British Columbia. Did you like it?
It was very nice to sit back and relax, not worry about anything.
Yeah.
Except for bugs.
Bunch of bugs, but none of them bit. There's a lot of grasshoppers.
A lot of annoying flies.
Yeah. By the way, this doesn't fit over my head. Check out the Tetley tea in the wine barrel. Thankfully, he did supply lighting. There's a microwave, which we really needed.
Oh, nice, and there's a guest book that you can sign.
I like the...
I love the touches.
You had no idea?
I'm cool.
Was it worth the trip?
Yes.
Da 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 da. Don't demonetize me.
Thanks so much for watching another Dice Tower video. If you enjoy our videos, subscribe to the channel for more fun, comprehensive board game coverage. Also, consider joining us at one of our events. Come to Dice Tower Retreat, a small, intimate gathering where gaming is king. Join us for Dice Tower Cruise, the largest board game cruise. Attend Dice Tower West in Las Vegas for gaming fun on the West Coast, or Dice Tower East in Orlando, in sunny Florida. Dice Tower Conventions, the friendliest gaming conventions on Earth. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.